Good evening, everyone. Welcome to lesson number 4. Today we're going to look at 4 things, 2 relating directly to syntactic variety, and I guess 2 focusing on errors in syntactic variety and just writing in general. The first thing we're going to look at is apositive comma usage, and after that we're going to look at syntactic variety in context, so in different classes, like in your history class, Mr. Striegel's class, compared to your English class. Whether it be Striegel's this year, my class this year, or APUSH next year and Miss Smith's class next year, you want to be ready to vary your, specifically your tenses in the way you talk about the subjects in your writing. We'll also be looking at abbreviations, all right? So we want to talk about that and how that's not really an example of good syntactic variety. And then our last thing would be some commonly misused or misspelled elements of syntactic variety here. So we'll be looking at 3 things. We'll be looking at this first, second, third, and fourth. Okay. They're really awesome and small little tips that can really help not only your writing in general, but also the way you incorporate variety depending on the certain purposes that you have. So to begin looking at apositive commas are pretty much renaming something or like adding to it. So let me show you an example. In this example, we see that John, the painter, arrived late to work. Ask yourself this: who's the painter? John. What is John? John's the painter. These commas are used in the apositive sense, where basically they set off or define something in addition. So, in addition to whatever it is, the name, the thing. And so let me show you an example of the non-apositive comma use, and you tell me which one you like better. So here we have a non-apositive instance of a comma. They're just not there. And I say John is a painter and he arrived late to work. Okay. If you notice, one key difference is the number of words. I mean, here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 words in the second sentence. 10. And then here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, I'm not telling you that you can't write sentences that are 10 words or sentences that are longer, but I guess what I want to show you is how the apositive comma can help you break out of a more traditional pattern, straightforward pattern of saying something like this, a lot of detailed information in their own individual sentences, in favor of something like this, where we can incorporate the details into a single sentence and pretty much break that pattern and have less words with the same amount of information. Okay, so apositive commas are quite helpful and they can be used really extensively in your writing. Let me give you one more example before we move on. This is the most important element of this lesson, I would say. So here we have a sentence that attempts to use an apositive comma construction in a more kind of effective or like formal setting instead of John the painter. Okay. What I do here is use the apositive comma here and here. So if you look at the sentence, despite Macbeth's efforts to avoid murdering Duncan, Lady Macbeth, a very convincing whisper in Macbeth's ear, ensures that the murder will take place. Okay. You would ask yourself, who or what is a very convincing whisper in Macbeth's ear? Well, Lady Macbeth. What is Lady Macbeth? She is a very convincing whisper in Macbeth's ear. Again, you could express those ideas in 2 separate sentences, like explain what Lady Macbeth is, and then rewrite this sentence without that apositive comma use. But you're able to add in that information a little bit more seamlessly. And even as I was sitting here, just in the few minutes, I was kind of playing around with different constructions, and it often takes kind of the right situation, and it will tend to come up naturally where like you want to define something. But if you do it in this way where you're basically you're not creating another sentence, you're just inserting basically a long adjectival phrase or something to that effect following a noun, you'll be able to create these constructions a little bit more naturally, and obviously remember that it's always your stylistic choice that reigns in these matters. So I hope this helps see that these are an effective usage of commas, that if used properly, you'll be able to really improve the dynamism in your writing. And if you notice, the sentence would continue seamlessly if all of this were taken out. So that's the apositive comma content, and here's the sentence without it. Here's a check to see if you use the apositive comma correctly. Despite Macbeth's efforts to avoid murdering Duncan, Lady Macbeth ensures that the murder will take place. So if you notice, you could take out the apositive comma usage and not affect the sentence's grammatical status at all, or completeness status, and that's a really good check as well to see if you used it correctly. Now, the second feature that I wanted to talk about today was syntactic variety and context, particularly relating to tenses, okay? And the thing about it is you'll need to eventually understand the importance of using the correct tense for the particular discipline. So, for instance, in history, they view history as more of pure, dead, past, gone fact. Now, obviously, you can view it critically and still have a lot to say, but when you talk about historical events and you write historical essays and you're treating historical subjects, it's in the past tense. You don't write it in the present tense because I think, first of all, it would be confusing, and second of all, you would appear to be making the mistake of not distinguishing the present, which is influenced by the past, from the past. Apologize if that's confusing, but it makes sense to me. And so, remember that in... What? Yeah, Mrs. Reed is, she wants to add in that they're dead to help you remember to use the past tense. Very good, very good. Obituaries wouldn't make much sense if we were still talking about them in the present. You'd be like, oh, are they coming? Are they just running a little late here? Okay, but you guys will enjoy that one on Tuesday. And so present tense would deal with English and most literary essays, okay? The contrast would be the literary element, and I don't know if you've ever heard of this notion, but some people say that one of the reasons why you write in present tense in literary analysis essays and anything dealing with literature is because literature is happening all around us. Literature lives on. It never ceases. It's always alive. Whatever various way you want to view it. But the thing about it as a teacher that I try to remind my students is that I think it's good because it encourages the active voice, encourages the active analysis, and it also legitimizes your experience with the text in that moment. Like, just because you've read Great Gatsby, or people have read it 100 years ago, well, I'm sorry, it wasn't written 100 years ago, but let's say 30 years ago, that doesn't mean that you, 30 years later, can't have a new, fresh, and vivid experience of it. It's kind of like when you read it personally, that's your new experience, With history, it's like, it will never change regardless of your experience of it, It's like FDR created the New Deal. FDR created the New Deal is still the same case 50 years, 70 years, 80 years later. It's just a matter of fact. Whereas literature is a little bit more of a organic / growing experience for the reader and for the person thinking about it. So, consider that. I don't mean to demean history. I really don't. I want to give history its credence, but in general, we want to recognize these distinctions in terms of the tenses of the main verbs and of our sentences, okay? So like the main verbs, how we use our analysis, our analytical language, and what tense we place it in, okay? That to me shows that you need to vary your writing, specifically your tenses, based on what subject you're sitting in or what subject you're completing the assignment for, okay? Now, the second to last thing here that I wanted to cover was abbreviations and how abbreviations is not a good use of syntactic variety. You don't want to do this. You don't want to say, Mr. Reed, I've written "and" so many times. I think it's time for the symbol. No, no, please, no, please. Return to sender, please. Okay. The idea here is that abbreviations do not have places in academic formal writing. This is something that I've kind of gotten some input from other teachers who will kind of or want to discourage the use of abbreviations. So if you think that you can vary your sentence structure's appearance by using abbreviations such as and, like if you were writing about the government and you do gov, or if we were to look at something like W/O dealing with without, try and avoid these, because ultimately it just brings down the formality of your piece of writing. And I don't really think this too often, especially if it's a timed write. But if it's a take-home essay and you're using abbreviations, sometimes I associate laziness with it. But with in-class essays, that may just be, necessary haste. So try your best to avoid it and just consider it not an approved. I'm in Shakespeare. Where's my? Oh, geez. It's not an approved method of varying your sentence structure, nor is it desired in pretty much any class when you're writing for formal purposes, okay? So keep that in mind. And here comes our last item, dealing with just some commonly confused, and we've addressed some of these, but I just want to hit them one more time at the end of this video. Okay, so these are some commonly confused that honestly I've seen a lot of improvement, because I know we addressed these two earlier on in the year, but in other classes and beyond the walls of your sophomore year, sometimes these things can continue to kind of pop up. And I would just like you to be aware of your diction and your word choice, to vary it based on the required meaning that it has. Okay, don't be lazy and omit the apostrophe here if you want to display the contraction. Okay, don't be I don't want to say lazy for this one, but try to be aware of what context you're using there. Are we talking about possession? Are we talking about going over there? Are we talking about the contraction they are? So this kind of deals with being aware of what words you use and what meaning you're trying to convey with them. And ultimately, I think it contributes to syntactic variety in a very small way, in just that you're using the proper word choice to support that sentence that you've written. So with that in mind, those are the four things. Just a little reminder here on the commonly confused. It's surprisingly how much it comes up, not just in my class or junior year or senior year, but college professors will even deal with this, and they're like, what the heck, you haven't gotten this yet? So just really try to do it. And do you want to know one theory I have as well? Spell check will not catch these. Spell check will not catch these, and so you need to catch it yourself. And be aware of it, all right? Be aware of it. Don't think you're ever beyond it, and just be on the lookout for some of these commonly confused ones. I'll look at some others a little later on, but I didn't want to make it about errors. I wanted to focus on syntactic variety, and even this was a stretch for syntactic variety. So thanks for watching this fourth video, and I'll see you guys soon.